Katie Hoogendam is a Great Lakes region artist, poet, and writer. We talk about creative self-censorship and whether or not it's a bad thing, the ways creating alongside your kids can be like a writing prompt, and why selling art is not like selling sandwiches. Hi, Katie. Welcome to Make Like a Mother.
Hi.
Thanks for being here with me this morning, getting your lamp set up and getting yourself all sorted out. Yeah, I love it. So this feels like a very full circle moment to me to have you here on my podcast about motherhood and art, because the first time we ever collaborated was when you asked me to sing as part of your poetry launch for your chapbook, Mother Tongue. So there's this very constant thread that weaves in our collaboration, I think, about motherhood and your poetry. That was my first experience of your poetry, I think, and I can remember the physical reaction that I had to the way you create imagery and the language you use and how it is so like of the earth, but also so gorgeous. Like, just, I don't know anybody else who writes like you. And so I'm really very honored to have you with me today on this podcast.
Well, thank you, Shannon.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's exceptional. I'll just start off with that. And so your vision of motherhood, I think, and like the life that you really carefully work to steward for your kids often makes its way into your work. Could we start, since I've just, pumped it up and everybody will want to know what I'm talking about? Could we maybe hear one of your poems?
Sure. This poem is not directly about motherhood. It's from Liminal Spaces, which just launched last year, and it's a collaborative chapbook from Glentula Press that I put together with three women who I've been in a writer's group with for about 5 years now, and we're all from different countries, but we've all been mothers, and there are lots of different ties that we have. And I'm reading this because along with motherhood, or sort of coinciding with that, a lot of what you and I have done, because we've done a lot of things collaboratively, is sort of consider what it means to be an artist, of any stripe, musician, writer, visual artist, whatever, in this particular historical moment. And motherhood brings a lot of gravity to that, or it really colors it in a different way. So this poem is about that, what it means to be a woman and an artist. And as you'll see, I hope there are some sort of like domestic references that speak to the things that drive us ultimately, and the difference between, hopefully this poem speaks for itself, but I'm interested in, the inequity that we face in this moment as women making art, and also trying to, I love how you said it, steward the lives of our children, because alone, just simply to be a woman is enough of challenge right now. And so I hope this gets to the heart of it. So this is called On Your Stoop in Halifax, I Sat Down and Wept. After Maud Lewis, the Maud Lewis House, Art Gallery of Nova Scotia. It was in Halifax where I saw your home, now permanent to the museum. I've been in Canada for over 2 decades, but I'm still learning which names are household names. When I first came, I was expected to teach my students everything I knew about Terry Fox, what he had overcome. I went home, had to look him up, research his defiance so that I might share it. They don't tell some stories where I'm from, America. In Halifax, I sat on your stoop and wept. What of my 3 years gone sister, the artist, and her condemned trailer? Condemned as she was for a mind made of color. No one stopped long enough at her door to recognize the art within. And what is home when you are a woman? If my sister had first painted and then painted a sign reading paintings for sale, as you did, Maud, would passersby finally understand? What is this strange power that is declaration? A woman says, "This is not decoration. This is incantation. I am the magician. What this house disappear, drown in conjured color, defy your gaze, confuse your eyes. When you leave, you will not know what story to tell, and I will have bread and butter."
Wow. I would like to sit with that longer, and I will at another time. Thank you for that, Katie. That was really beautiful. And yeah, I don't have the right words right now. Thank you for that. You and I have talked about the difficulty, the discomfort we both grapple with sometimes at the idea of our kids seeing or hearing some of our art, right? There's some pieces of our art that feel difficult for us to imagine or to allow our kids to experience. That's probably a changing, shifting boundary. I'm wondering today how you feel about your own sort of creative, not, this is a harsh word, but sort of self-censorship as it relates to your kids specifically.
Yeah, that's something I grapple with constantly. And I think despite the fatigue that comes with having kids when you're not in your 20s, I'm glad that I did that because and this is probably true for all artists, but anyone who kind of has roots in some sort of like where their art is inherently autobiographical, which I think is true no matter who you are, what you're doing. But sometimes your body is your subject matter, or your emotional landscape is your subject matter, and in that way, your vulnerability can be your economy. It can be um, the materials that you're using to express the truth, or the at least the honest, to the road to your deepest way of being honest. But that is not always what you want your kids to experience of you. And I think that for a long time, even before having kids, I would grapple with what does it mean to live vulnerably and honestly, and to grapple with these sort of um uncomfortable, or these thoughts and feelings that may not sort of fit the they're not culturally appropriate to talk about sort of openly, whatever. And that can
Mhm.
just be as simple as, like, we're used to things like, if a like we're used to talking about menstruation, perimenopause, all that stuff very openly now, but that's really hasn't always been that way, even in our lifetimes, right? Like,
No.
the material way, the material nature of being a human being, um, that has become more of a subjective, like, common whatever in common parlance, but that used to be something we censored, right?
Mhm.
And so in the same way, I think when you're trying to grapple, I used to deal with this, like when you're trying to grapple honestly as an artist, but you're also a parent, or a teacher, or a minister, or whatever, in some service profession where you're a leader, that seeming tension used to really be difficult for me to sort of suss out, because I
Yeah.
used to be an educator, and I would wonder, like, I would be the teacher and then drive home with my speakers as loud as they could be in the car, listening to music, whatever.
Yep.
Wouldn't share with my students. But anyway, long story short, I think that ultimately we are made up of many selves, and those selves are always sort of in dynamic evolution. And sometimes our art needs to address that, and sometimes it doesn't. And um, it's okay. Like sometimes it's really necessary, like for an art. For me, it was necessary to like grapple with all this stuff.
Mhm.
Do I want my kids to see some of my paintings? Not really. That used to bother me. And now I'm kind of like, that's okay. And maybe also I'm done with them too, right? Like
Right.
I think sometimes you're processing something. And sometimes that process becomes public, and it's okay to um think of different parts of yourself, I think, as like your different personas, and they don't always have
Mhm.
to hang out with your kids. And I'm more okay with that, you know? Like I'm more okay with that. I don't think I answered your question at all.
You did, whatever, you totally did, and I think what you just said about the processing struck something for me because as an artist, yeah, there's just because you have completed, say for you, a painting or a poem, or if I've written a song, just because, like, the work is done doesn't mean your internal experience of whatever that work is about is done, and it doesn't mean that you're comfortable with it yet or necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean that. So that's very interesting to think about. Like
Mhm.
sometimes when I put out a new song, it's terrifying. And then 3
Mhm.
years later, it's if I'm still singing that song, it's not terrifying because I have come to a different place with whatever that song was about, whatever made me sing it, whatever, all those things. So that's really an interesting point I hadn't thought about. It relates to how our kids, yeah, like whether or not we want our kids to see it too. Yeah.
Right, and I think that, like, it's not dishonest to not like, maybe our kids
Mm.
don't want to see they don't maybe need that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot about, like I've loved Tori Amos for a long time, you know? And I've thought, well, she's a mother and her songs are, pretty raw. Um, but, like, it is okay for your mom to do something that you don't really wanna know about.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to hear all I mean, do you know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
like, and when they grow up, they're going to want to hear all about
Yeah.
fill in the blank. Maybe they
Yeah.
won't, and
Yeah.
I think that there's more conversation even across all genres of art making about like, oh, well, who's your audience? Maybe I'm not for you, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe this strange poem is for like a very niche population, but
Mhm.
then, or maybe it's for one other person in this world. Maybe only one other person will like garner something from it. And that's fine. And maybe 99% of what I do is not for, the demographic of people
Yeah.
under 18. I don't know. Or
Yeah.
maybe it is, but like, that's
Yeah.
also fine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, in that sort of just branching off of that idea that you just talked about, or that made me think of, in terms of a career, and a family as an artist, have you had to grapple with considering how much you want to pursue your artistic career and whether or not that could have impacts on your family life you do or don't want to have? I don't know if that exists in the writing world as much as it would for me as a musician, but I'm wondering if you have had that experience.
Yeah, for sure. I know that like you and I have talked a lot about, I mean, this is not my reality, but it would be cool to be a musician. Just my fantasy reality where I'm in a band,
Yeah.
as you know. But but like but I feel the same way, that we've talked about like touring as a musician. Like
Mhm.
it just involves so many things, like so many such a skills or such like a collection of things that are also necessary to like being a functioning healthy adult. Like it's really hard to sleep on a bus for 30 days and eat weird food and be a good parent, right? Like so
Yeah.
if you have to do that to like sell your album, that's hard. It's like taking from the same well that you need to
Mhm.
draw from to be a functioning parent. And I mean, I don't think like book tours are really not as cool as band tours.
I don't know. I
But
think they're pretty cool.
I but, I mean, I have thought about that because, when like, even when we launched our book as Collaborators, like, some of us don't live in this area anymore, and we
Mm,
were talking about all these places that would be a perfect spot to launch this thing, and I thought, like, I can't do that because this is also when my kids are home from school, and I just can't do it. I can't be on the
right.
road like that. Um, but I mean, that's one way that, like, that's just one example of sort of how artists have to self-promote and
Yep.
things like that. And obviously that's changed um with on the internet and things like that. I've realized for me that, like, even the process of having children, like the actual births, and then the learning process it's taken to learn what it means to be a mother. To me, this sounds so saccharine, maybe, or cliche, but it's true. It's true for me, which ultimately, and I'm really sort of coming to terms with that this year. This is like the deepest creative process I've ever had. This
Hmm.
is the most all-consuming um, piece of art that I'm living through, and it is inherently collaborative. And when I am fully present in it, it's overwhelming. Like, it's like a wave. It's really overwhelming to think about. And um, I often think of, like, for me, some people say ebb and flow, some people say have different metaphors, but for me, um, my life and my artistic process are similar in that I feel like, like a tree, like sometimes I have to just be absorbing nutrients, and I am apparently barren, and I might look like I'm dead, but really I'm absorbing. And then sometimes I'm sprouting new growth. And
Hmm.
sometimes that growth is evidently changing, the colors are changing or whatever. So sometimes only I'm aware of what's happening, and sometimes it's more outwardly aware. But something's always happening. Like, I'm
Hmm.
alive, and my environment and my children feed that. And
Mm,
so I think for me, the process is learning to not feel like I have to explain that to
yeah.
everybody, and not feel like I have like, sorry, my leaves are bare right now, but don't worry, don't worry, I'll have leaves
Yeah.
soon. It's like, yeah, that I just have to be okay with me being me,
Yeah.
and recognize that my kids are part of that, like, and that
Yeah.
I'm so fortunate.
Yeah. It's interesting to me to hear you talk about apologizing for that because you are one of the people I know who I think is the best at recognizing your own um it's terrible, but the way you said it, like the barren, times that appear barren, times when you're just taking in nutrients, um, and just saying like, no, this is the time for me right now. Whereas I know, at least I'll speak for myself, but I don't think I'm alone. A lot of artists get a little panicky when they experience those times, and I don't think it's necessarily because of commercial reasons. Like for me, it's certainly not. I don't make a lot of money during the leafy periods, so it's not really like, oh, the money's gone, but it's more like uh whether or not you trust that it's coming again. Or even for me, it's like those days when it's leafy, they feel really good. So then
Hmm.
the days when you're just absorbing nutrients sometimes feel like less sparkly or something, like less magical than a day when you're like, I wrote a song. But yeah, you have often made it explicitly clear that you're not in a time you're in a nutrient absorption time, and that seems okay. You've made it feel okay to me, which is helpful. It's helpful to me to see that. Yeah. um and I know in your home you have like a creative space you go to work when you have the opportunity to go be alone to do some work. But I also know that you often create sort of elbow to elbow with your kids, right? And is there a difference? Like, is there a discernible difference for you in how and or the way you create when they're in the room versus like when you get to kind of be in your little cave by yourself?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think I used to maybe idolize that time where it's just me because I really, 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 really like being alone making art. I like because I mostly because I have difficulty like even when it's just our dog, I'm always aware of their presence and I
Mm.
and I have a difficult time sort of like shutting off my sense of like what does the dog need right now? Maybe the dogs didn't eat her breakfast or whatever. And so when I'm alone in my space, it's like I have blinders on and I can really like turn the music up all the way and preferably like my I love that like it's 2 a.m. and everyone's asleep and if no one were in my house I could have the music as loud as I want and I could just like be in the zone. Like that is how I love to be, just like drilling
Okay.
into it for hours and hours and hours on end. That doesn't work when you like have like a normal life. So but what has been wonderful is I always thought it was like either or. So really the pandemic forced me to try. I'm like, no one's going anywhere. Like, and I don't want to not make art because I really need to do this. Um, so for me, it was like a creative constraint that ended up being such a wonderful thing. And I can, have found a way through trial and error, I guess, to like get in the flow alongside my kids because they're creating this like beautiful energy that is not mine, right? Is their own thing that and I don't like the word pure because I don't believe in it, but it's like unmediated by all the whatever Shaisa that the adult world is throwing in there. They're
Mhm.
these beings who are not like responding to some internet meme. They're just they're just like, wow, I drank lemonade and now the sunlight's pouring in and there's a rock over there. It's all and that is the essence of art. And so I started to realize like I'm so lucky to have these are like my mentors. I need to
Oh.
watch them and be with them doing this thing. I can learn so much. And so I just realized like, oh, it's not either or. And I was really like a relief. And I still really love being alone. Like
Mhm.
that's but it's just a different experience. So I feel really it's kind of a relief to realize like art can be anywhere at any time in any moment. I don't have to be so precious about
Right.
my like like complete
Yeah.
solitude and that made
Okay.
me feel that so it's different my subject matter. I mean I don't I feel like at first I was like, how can I make what I really want? How can I get in the flow if I can't just
Mhm.
respond to whatever my impulses?
Yeah.
But that actually has been fine. Like you
Cool.
don't always have to it's been fine.
It makes me wonder if it's sort of like when you write just based on what's inside your own head versus writing when somebody gives you a prompt. Like if your kid's
Mm.
presence there is pointing you in different directions than you might go if you were just all by yourself.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, totally. That's perfect. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so then that's
I
really
love that.
exciting because it's like what I find I used to really resist the idea of prompts. I was like, I don't want to write
Mhm.
about a watermelon because somebody told me to write about a watermelon. But then I did some prompts. You end up in a workshop or something where it's just part of the deal and you do it. And I was like, oh, I have things to say about these topics or something interesting that I was never going to find on my own comes out because somebody gave me this one little tool or this one shone a light on one little spot that I wasn't looking at. And I'm like, oh, turns out I do have a song about a watermelon if I don't. That was an example, but
Well, maybe you do. I look forward to hearing it later
maybe
today.
maybe later today is the watermelon song day. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Um,
Yeah, I love that's great. I
very
love
interesting.
that. Yes, it is just like
Cool.
that.
Cool. And when you sell your art, you often sell, I think, particularly your visual works on a barter or like pay what you can system. You seem to reference that most of the time, is my experience of your art. And I'm curious why that's your choice.
Oh, I think art should be accessible to everyone. I'm hoping that I have a collection, I hope that some billionaire walks in and she's like, "Sure, I'll pay what I can.
Yeah.
Has $3 million." I mean, really, it doesn't just mean
No.
25 cents. But I mean, yeah, I appreciate that as a policy because people can't even buy food.
Mhm.
Yes, I do. We've talked a lot about this. I believe that artists should always be remunerated for their work. Someone works on a painting for 30 hours, you're not just giving it away, right?
Yeah.
And so even if it's like, I don't have any money, but like I raise chickens. Can I give you 2 chickens or whatever? Yeah, because there's this, maybe for lack of a better phrase, but like there's like an energy exchange that happens, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like I see what you did there. And even, it's not as I don't know if I was directly influenced by this or not, but there's like I did a lot of like anthropological work on like shamans, for instance. We
Mm.
have this idea that no one would ever pay someone for their spiritual guidance. But in fact, it's been found that like world over, people usually bring money or gifts or whatever to even like the person in that community who does that kind of work
Mhm.
for the same reason. It's like we're exchanging something here, and let's mark it with this thing. So yeah, but I just believe that if somebody is drawn to a piece of my art, they should not have it because they don't have enough money for it. That just makes me sick. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That makes yeah, I like the two sides of that. That it's accessible to everybody and people who can afford to be be compensating somebody for their work and for the things that move them in that system. Do you find they tend to people do like people who can afford it pay appropriately?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I 99.9% of the time. Yeah, almost always people. Yeah, yes, every
Yeah.
time. No one's, yeah.
Yeah.
99.9% of the time. Yes.
Which is like a beautiful side benefit of that system too is like having your faith in people like reinforced, right? Maybe you don't think of it that way when it's happening, but I feel like there are certainly people who think pay what you can means people are going to take advantage of the system. And I am not of that camp. I've seen it work so many times and agree with you that like there's a lot of experiences that should be accessible to whomever would like them. But there are
Mhm.
people who are like, oh, I'll pay what you can. Why would anybody pay anything? And I'm like, well, why are you such a jerk? Like, not everybody thinks that way.
Well, I mean, that's true. I think that if the idea of reciprocity is like not is lacking in but see, I think that usually if you're like in a scenario where there's like a book of poems or like a piece of art available. I mean, maybe I mean, if you're not the kind of person to it's like thinking these things through, then maybe it's like a gift to you. Maybe it's a talisman that will follow you and teach you something. I don't know. I like
It's your curse.
if my art were like sandwich making, I
Hmm.
would not do pay as you can, I don't think, unless I was in a scenario where it was very clear that like now I'm going down a bad rabbit hole, but I think that like people need food, and if someone's gonna put a sandwich in front of you,
Yeah.
and it's just right there, and maybe no one will notice, whatever. There's this like creature need, right? And I think that
Oh,
like
I see what you mean. Yeah.
art and poetry, I believe, also fit a creature need, but you're not like there's not some biological impulse to take the book
Hmm.
of poems. Probably. It would be kind of cool if there were,
It'd be
right?
pretty
So there's not
amazing,
like the
actually.
risk. I don't think there's like the risk there, you know?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I love it so much. Well, I mean, thank you for making me laugh so hard right as we wrap up here. This has been such a pleasure. I could talk to you for hours. I will continue to talk to you for hours. We will do that, but not on this episode. And I'll just let people know that they can find you. You can find Katie on Substack, and her handle there is Mercat Art, Merkat Art. And you can buy Katie's poetry at Reader's Nook bookstore in Cobourg. But also, if you're not local, you can talk to her on Substack and find ways to connect with her about her art there. And I just so appreciate your time. Thank you for being with me here today.
Oh, Shannon, thank you. It was my honor. Thank you so much.